Leading Britain's conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, answering your questions. 0345 6060 973. This is LBC.
Morning, 3 minutes after 9 on Friday, July the 3rd. Sat opposite me to take your calls, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, the first time that I've seen him in some months. And I have to say, all the months and years we broadcast together, genuinely it is good to see you because of the fact that you've had the virus. So good to see you here. But sadly, that's where the tone might have to take a change because, Prime Minister, when you look at the statistics, and we have the concerning COVID-19, we have the third highest death toll in the world, the worst in Europe by some measure, the second highest infection rate in Europe. God forbid there were to be a second spike, a second wave.
Indeed.
What would you do differently? Or are you going to tell me, hand on your beating heart, that you would do exactly the same again?
I'm certainly not going to say that, Nick. But what I can say is that we're learning lessons the whole time about how to handle this disease. It's obviously a new disease, something that's affected the whole world. It's been a global pandemic. And really, thanks to the hard work of the British people, we are now very much through the worst of the disease so far. There's no question that the numbers have come down, the numbers of admissions to hospital are well down, the numbers of deaths are down. There'll be a time to look at what we could have done better, of course, and we'll make sure that we do that. I don't think that time is now. The thing to do now...
When will that be the time?
When, frankly, we're through this very, very, very busy phase of not just getting the disease right down, keeping it completely under control, keeping it on the floor, but also slowly getting the economy working again. And those two things at once require a huge amount of official energy and effort. And that's what this government is devoted to.
All right.
And so tomorrow we come to the step 3 of the plan that I set out on May the 10th, that everybody, I think, has understood, or huge numbers of people have understood and followed very carefully and very closely. And it's because people stuck to that plan that we're now able to carefully and cautiously to open up hospitality tomorrow. And my message is, and I hope we come to it, my message is really for people to enjoy summer sensibly and make sure it all works.
We shall talk about that. And just before we go to the first call, the events that have happened within the last 24 hours were an approach to be made by the US authorities to seek to interview Prince Andrew. What should the response of Her Majesty's government be?
Nick, obviously, I think everybody's sympathies are very much with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, but you wouldn't expect me to comment on matters affecting the royal family. It's not. It's just not the tradition.
I ask you what the government response would be if US agencies or authorities were to approach the British government, the Foreign Office.
There's no such approach has been made, and otherwise it really is a matter for the royal family.
But were it to be made, what would the response of the British government be if they were to seek to have interviews or access to the Duke of York?
Well, were it to be made, using your beautiful subjunctive there, Nick, it would be a matter, obviously, for the British government, but no such approach has yet. Minister. No such approach has been made.
But you would assist the United States in its inquiries?
It's a hypothetical question.
But we would.
No such approach has been made. It's a matter for the royal family.
You block the US in its inquiries?
I didn't say that.
So you would assist the US in its inquiries?
I think you're asking what we call a hypothetical question. It's a matter for it's a matter for the royal family. But of course, the law must be carried out, and the law must be observed.
Because it is alleged one of these attacks might have taken place in London, Prime Minister.
Well, I think, again...
In which case the law must be taken out through the Metropolitan Police.
These are not things that you would expect me to comment on. We don't traditionally comment on them, and it's a matter for
But the law would have to take its course if an attack took place in London.
Of course.
Let's go to questions that are not so hypothetical. If I could ask you to put your headphones on so that you can listen to, and here we go. The first question, just to make sure you can hear Prime Minister, is Sam in Bristol. Sam, you're through to Boris Johnson. Go ahead, sir. Good morning.
Hi.
Sam, hi. Good morning.
Good morning,
sir.
Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good morning, sir.
Quick question for you. Where is the black representation in your senior cabinet?
Well, I'm proud to say that we have, in this Conservative government, I think we've got more black and ethnic minority members.
Senior cabinet was Sam's point.
Sam's point is a good one. The cabinet has been reshuffled, and it's absolutely true that it's only, I think, two of the most senior officers of state that have black and ethnic minority representation, Asian minority groups, but represented at the top of the cabinet. But Sam, I'm not going to hide it from you. Of course, we can do more, and we will do more, and I'm very ambitious for that.
Sam, why is it important?
We have fantastic. I think Sam is talking particularly not about BAME. I think Sam is talking particularly about black representation in the cabinet, and there, Sam, I accept that we can do more, and we will do more.
Sam, why is it important to you?
When we look up at all of the big companies in the UK, we see a structure where there's not much black representation in the senior boards. And it's reflective of what we see at the very top, where our role models are set, i.e. Boris Johnson being the role model for all CEOs of a company. Mm-hmm. So if in your company, which we'll call the government or the senior cabinet in this case, you do not employ black people, what do you expect companies which support the FTSE 100 to do?
Well, Sam, we do. First of all, we do, and there are plenty of black ministers in our government. But your particular point was about black representation at the top, and all I can come back and say is, we've got substantial BAME representation at the top of government at the moment. We haven't got the actual black ministers at the top in a way that I think you and I would like to see. And I'm going to put my hands up to that one and say we need to make progress, and we will.
I know you don't like hypothetical questions, but let me ask you, as and when you freshen up the batting lineup, and I'm sure you've got a fantastic first team at the moment, there's a chance then that there will be.
Of course,
I can say
Sam,
to you, there will be black representation in senior cabinet.
I'm not going to hide it. I think about this a lot, and it's something I want to get right. And I'm conscious that we need to reflect the country we serve, and also, to get to Sam's point, we need to send out a clear and powerful signal of encouragement to businesses and to the whole country.
One of them is going to make the first 11.
I'm not going to make particular comment
one of these
about
great
any
lower tier ministers will make the first 11.
I do want to see progress.
All right. Would you take the knee, Prime Minister?
What I want to do is do
this is
substantial.
A yes or no,
well, let me give you my answer. I don't believe in gestures. I believe in substance. I believe in doing things that make a practical difference. So if you look at what this government has done over the last few years, look at what I did when I was running this city. I massively increased, for instance, black representation, black and minority ethnic representation in the Metropolitan Police. We increased the proportion of recruits. We had an active programme to accelerate promotion for great black police officers. And I want to see that happen across the country. And what we've seen in the last 10 years is more young black kids doing the toughest, crunchiest subjects in school.
Yes.
We've seen more young black kids going to some of the best universities in this country, and that's what I want to see. I'd rather see a story of championing success and talking about the opportunities that we can open for young black people. That's what I want to see, and I'd much rather work on that.
But
of course, there are injustices
that
we need to rectify, and there is prejudice out there. Of course, there is prejudice out there, and we need to fight it.
Prime Minister, are you a Raab or a Starmer? Would you take the knee? Dominic Raab, your colleague, would not. Sir Keir Starmer, your opponent, would.
Honestly, what I think.
This is a yes or no.
My answer is I don't want people to be bullied into doing things that they don't necessarily want to do at any given moment. I'll give you the reason. If you think what happened with those police officers standing at the cenotaph, or where they were being really insulted in quite aggressive terms by some members of the crowd and told to take the knee. And some of them did, and it was very difficult then for the others who didn't. And that's my position. I think it's very, very important that you don't do things that make life difficult or embarrassing, particularly for people who are...
As senior officers have said, officers should not take the knee because it's not safe for their colleagues.
And I understand that.
And you agree with that?
I do agree with that.
OK. All right, let's come to another question. Shirley is in East Grinstead. Shirley, you're on the radio. Go ahead. You're through to the Prime Minister.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Shirley, good morning.
Good morning. In your opinion, working in care homes, if we'd locked down sooner, do you think we would have seen fewer deaths?
In care homes.
Well, I think Shirley, we will have to go back and look at the whole issue of what happened in care homes in great detail. I think what happened was absolutely tragic. There's no question that we saw far too many lives lost in care homes, and we mourn for everyone. I think that a lot of different things came together. Difficulties with the governance of care homes, getting the messages across, making sure that people understood what they had to do to protect against the disease. One factor that people mention very often is the idea that people came out from the NHS into care homes.
There is a charge that you and your colleagues effectively shunted these people off to die, Prime Minister.
Well, which is disputed, because others say, well, no, actually the numbers from January to March, the numbers going into care homes from the NHS fell by 40%. So surely we'll have to go back and look at exactly what happened. I bitterly regret every single loss of life that we've had. It's been an absolutely.
But you don't recognise the charge regarding care homes.
Miserable
that people
time
were
for people
pushed into care homes to protect to save the NHS.
No, I don't think that's right. I think what we certainly wanted to do was to ensure that we had the space in the NHS. That's absolutely right. But what I'm told is that every decision to move people out of the beds in the NHS was taken on a clinical basis, and not in any way intended to endanger the care homes. However, Shirley has a very, very valid point, and we will have to go over it all again. Whether an earlier lockdown, which is her question, whether an earlier lockdown would have made the crucial difference, is something that really we will have to go over and look at. And I talk. Obviously, we go over it. I talk intensively to our advisors about all of this, and we debate it the whole time. And we will have to have a proper examination.
Shirley, thank you. Laurie is in Redbridge. Laurie, you're through to the Prime Minister. Go ahead. Morning, Laurie.
Good morning. I'm currently shielding due to having undertaken chemotherapy last year. I'm also being assisted by the self-employed scheme, which is currently due to produce our last payment and help in August. I also work in theatre, so I have no definite return to work. I'd like to know what you're going to do to help people like me who have no foreseeable job, whose sector isn't currently being supported financially, and whose financial help runs out in August, please.
Well, Laurie, I'm obviously very I'm very much aware of the feelings of you and many others who are in your position, who are facing the end, as you say, of the support that you've been having. Though I would just remind everybody that the support has been pretty massive so far. I mean, the country has provided 120 billion to support workers and incomes in the last 2 or 3 months. 11 million jobs supported. The particular sector that you're in, Laurie, the theatre, we are going to try to get it going as fast as we possibly can.
What do you mean by trying to get it? Well, when this stops, this woman will have no employment.
Well, let's see, because what we want.
What does that mean?
Well, Oliver Dowden, the Secretary of State for DCMS, is working with the theatre sector to get it going as fast as possible. We've got a 5-point plan to reopen the theatres, and what we're doing is rehearsals are okay. We're trying to make sure that performances can take place outside. We want to get to a stage where people can safely.
October or November, Prime Minister.
Well, we want to get to a stage when people safely can perform again.
But in this instant, this woman's case, if we just take it respectfully, I would suggest Sir Cameron Mackintosh is closer to theatres than Oliver Dowden. His theatres are dark until next year. What is someone meant to do if the furlough scheme ends?
Well, we will do so. We've already put, as I say, a huge amount into supporting people's jobs.
But it ends.
And what you
Why does it end? Why is it necessary?
You'll be hearing more about what we're going to do to support people next week from the Chancellor Rishi Sunak.
So there will be some sort of financial
we want
support.
to make sure that we help people throughout the whole crisis. But I've got to be absolutely clear, the best way forward for the country is to get the economy moving again.
Yes.
So I don't know about Cameron Mackintosh's theatres, but we want to get the every part of our industry, inclling theatres, which are so vital.
But you and your colleagues are prohibiting it. You're the ones who, for instance, I can go to the pub, but I can't go to the gym.
Yeah, well,
Why?
Well, we're going to reopen gyms as soon as we can do it in a COVID-secure way. And I think that the date for reopening gyms at the moment, if we can do it, is in just a couple of weeks' time. So, we want to make progress. But I think
I can have a haircut tomorrow but not go to a nail bar. Why?
People, I think, listening to this debate do know the answer to that, and that is that we need to stop the spread of the disease.
But I can have a driving lesson, Prime Minister.
Yes.
I can have a driving lesson. But if I had one, I can't wipe my daughter down the aisle at her wedding.
You can find all sorts of... Of course, you can find all sorts of inconsistencies.
But you're an intelligent man. How did these come about?
Because we're managing a pandemic. And that pandemic is the result of human contact. And it is transmitted by people passing the virus one to the other. And the only way...
Like a driving
and the only way to keep the lid on that pandemic is, I'm afraid, to take certain steps to restrict human contact, which the British public have done heroically for the last 3 months. And that has meant that we've got the virus down, and we've been able now to make the progress that we're making.
So
now,
let's just put
to get back to Laurie's question.
Yeah.
What we need really to do is to not just to support Laurie and thousands like her who work in the arts, culture, theatre business, which is hugely important for our country, but we need to get those businesses going again in a COVID secure way.
Right.
That's the thing to do. And that's what I want to do. So if you want to know what my vision is to get this country moving again, it's to get back to a world that is as close as possible to for businesses like the theatre to the world before the
Royal
crisis
Albert Hall
began.
could go bust.
And we will take all kinds of steps.
Before it's 150. So,
all kinds of steps to support businesses.
But regarding Laurie, there will be some kind of feathered furlough. Is there? If you're an industry that can't go back to work, what are we going to hear from Mr. Sunak?
What you're going to hear from me is that we want businesses like the theatre to get back as fast as they possibly can.
Prime Minister,
they will be able to if we continue to defeat the disease. Okay. That's what we've got to do. Okay. We will be hearing next week. You'll be hearing more from Rishi about what we're going to do to support workers. But what you've already heard from this government is our determination to keep the whole UK economy moving forward. And with the Build programme, a £600 billion programme of renewal and recovery to invest in our country and keep it moving through infrastructure, through housing development, through technology, through investments in health and education that will drive jobs, not just now, but also for the medium and the long term. That's what we're going to do.
Let me ask you one other strange anomaly in that you can play tennis, but you can't play cricket. Is this because you regularly thrash your brother Joe on the tennis court, but he larrups you at the family cricket match? Is this why you can play tennis but you can't play cricket?
No, Nick. I mean, you're a brilliant interviewer, and you can find all sorts of inconsistencies.
But why tennis, not cricket?
Well, you made the same point about hairdressers and nail bars, and it's a valid point. There are reasons. These debates have been. These debates have gone
not a ball.
These debates have gone. You sound like Socrates there. These debates have gone round and round.
If a tree falls in the a cricket ball is the same as a ball. Either it carries germs or it doesn't. Surely, whether you're playing tennis or cricket with it. Correct,
but there are various other considerations that if you want the longer answer. Which I think probably Chris Whitty would give if he were here about cricket. The risk is not so much the ball, though that may be a factor. It's the tees, it's the change rooms, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
There are other factors involved that generate proximity, which you might not get in a game of tennis. Now, you've taken me into a sort of rabbit hole of detail when really what people, I think, understand is that this is a battle against a pandemic which we have fought so far with the use of social distancing measures, and we're very largely winning. But something else has happened now, and that is that there are 2 extra tools we now have in our locker, and 2 extra ways that we can now hope to defeat the disease and for people like Laurie and Shirley, ways of getting back to the status quo ante. Number 1. We've got the test and trace system, which everybody says is not as good as it should be, and I'm willing to accept that it needs to do better, but we've got that. It's working. It's tracking huge numbers of people and getting them to isolate. So we're stopping the spread of the disease. We're doing local lockdowns, local whack-a-mole. That's working. And number two, this country is in the lead in finding preparations, therapeutics to treat the disease. So the UK we did some things, I think you began the interview by saying, what went wrong.
Third highest in the world.
Exactly.
Worst in Europe.
What went wrong. Some things went right and and worked very fast. One of those was the search for a therapeutic in the form of dexamethasone. That's reducing fatalities in our ICUs. Treatment is getting better. Track and trace and treatment are both getting better the whole time.
We must get more questions in. Govinda, thank you for that premise. Govinda in Slough. Govinda, you're on the radio. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Ferrari. Morning, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah.
Just to the point, my mum and dad they basically took the rules very seriously for this lockdown, and in the end, I hadn't seen my mother for about a month, and she passed away.
I'm very sorry.
And then you got people like no, thank you, condolences. Then you got people like Dominic coming in, who make the rules, tell us to follow them, and they don't really care about them themselves, and they don't follow them themselves. How you expect the public to follow the rules if the people setting the rules don't really care about them themselves?
First of all, thanks, Govinda. But I think, as I said many times, in that particular case that you mentioned, I think the Durham police did say that there was no action that they wanted to take. Though I understand people, I really, really do understand people's feelings about that. But Govinda, what I've noticed, and I thank you for the way you've observed the rules. I really, really do, and I'm so sorry about the loss of your mum. What I would say is that most people in this country have shown huge forbearance and sacrifice, the overwhelming majority. And I think people do understand that this is something we need to do together, and they have done it. And I think people want to stick together and get through it. And my message is that the government is really very much on people's side. And so economically, we will continue to back people up. We will back up individuals, we'll back up firms, and we'll get the country through it. And I think we can use this as an opportunity to do some things differently and better, and to build back better.
It is difficult for Govinda when he talks about that, because even your own father has broken the restrictions by going to Greece. Listen, what will you say to your father?
I think you really ought to raise that with him.
You must have a view.
My view is that the overwhelming majority of the British people have understood what needs to be done. You asked me to raise it
with your dad. I put it to you that you're slightly closer to him, although I've had the privilege of meeting him. You're closer to him than I.
My dear Nick,
what will you say to your father?
I am not going to get into details of family conversations. I'm not going to dig into details.
Are you disappointed?
I think that I'm very, very pleased that the overwhelming majority of the British population...
But are you disappointed with Dad?
I'm very pleased that the overwhelming majority of the British population...
You're not going to give me one comment on Dad?
The overwhelming majority of... No.
Why?
Because
Can all men in their late 70s go off to Greece,
I think the overwhelming majority
of
the British population have understood what needs to be done and have been very prudent, and that is the right thing to do. And the results are there to be seen.
Well, we want to talk about the weekend. Ed in South East London wants to talk about the weekend. I know you have a message for the country concerning that, Prime Minister. Let's hear from Ed first. Ed, you're on the radio. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi there. Thank you for taking my call.
Not at all.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for your time, and Nick as well. And I just want to very, very quickly just say thank you for all that you and your government have done to keep us safe so far. However, I've got a major concern with regards to this coming weekend, bearing in mind that historically there are more incidents of drunken behaviour on a Saturday night, which obviously demands more on both the police and the NHS. Did the government consider that a weekday might have been more appropriate to open the pubs following 12 weeks of lockdown?
Well, there are other measures brought in on a Monday. Why Saturday?
Ed, look, we thought about this. Thanks, Ed, very much. As we thought about this carefully, and I think we wanted to give pubs time to prepare. We wanted a date early in July, and when I look at what is happening, I hope very much that people will behave responsibly and enjoy summer safely.
To his point about Monday, why not Monday?
I hope that this will be a reasonable time for people to get ready to enjoy themselves at the weekend, but to do it in a safe way.
The question is it? Why not Monday?
I don't think, frankly, it would make much.
You don't think more people go out on a Saturday?
Well, I hope that people will do this sensibly and safely. And so, just to remind everybody, it's either 2 meters or 1 meter with mitigations. Don't forget to wash your hands. Wear a face covering if you're in a confined space and meeting people.
On hope. You hope people respect the Prime Minister.
No, it's not on hope. It's based on.
You just said you will hope that people.
It's based on a clear understanding of the statistical risks that we now face as a country. We've progressed, thanks to the efforts of the British people, from an incidence of the disease at about 1 in 400 a few weeks ago to maybe 1 in 2,200 today. You're appreciably less likely now to be in close proximity to someone who has it than you were even a couple of weeks ago. So we're making progress. We aimed for July the 4th. We wanted to set ourselves a target. We think we're in good shape. But my message is, let's not blow it now, folks. We've done a fantastic job so far in bearing down on this disease collectively. Let's not blow it now. I'm afraid there are some countries around the world, some places around the world, where you are seeing spikes in the disease. Some places where I'm afraid it's not just the numbers of cases are going up, but also the hospital admissions are going up in other parts of the world. And we need to recognise that is always a risk.
Let's get one last question. Neil in Weston-super-Mare. Neil, your question. Good morning.
Hi there, Nick. Hi there, Prime Minister.
Neil.
Thank you for taking my call.
Not at all.
I've just got a couple of things. I'm a recent new father, similar to yourself.
Congratulations.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I've enjoyed the first few weeks with our new arrival. I had a sort of couple of questions around being a father and sharing responsibility with your partner. I mean, I've got an amazing wife that I couldn't fault. How have you found running the country and taking an active role in baby Wilfred's life?
Well, Neil, first of all, many congratulations to you, and it's a absolutely wonderful time, isn't it? But it is for me, at any rate, it is very, very busy. So the concept of paternity leave is not one that I've really been able to deal with
What's
so
the best
far.
part?
Well, it's he's a wonderful kid. He's an absolutely wonderful kid. So,
but what's the best part?
Well, I don't go. I don't normally go on about this, Nick. But you've.
Cuddling him, changing him, feeding him, bathing him. I don't know, reading to him.
All that, and I think it would be. I'm sure that Neil will know what I'm talking about. So it's a very detailed operation, and there's a lot of it. But I'm pretty hands on.
I've got you for another 2 minutes. So Kotluk questions. Good luck, Neil. Congratulations, and lots of love to you and the baby, and of course to your partner or your wife. Other world leaders such as Trudeau in Canada, Emmanuel Macron have worn a mask. Can you see a time when you will wear a mask?
Of course, and I think that we should wear face coverings, as I was saying just now, in confined spaces where we're with people that we don't normally see. And you so if you're somewhere where you're going to have to stand in a queue or somewhere where there are going to be people that you don't know, you should wear a face covering. I certainly I've got an ample supply of face coverings.
Are they like the Trudeau complete wraparound?
I've got a rather sort of.
May I see it?
No, it's sort of a bit Hannibal McCannibal actually. This thing I've got.
What have you got?
No, it's a.
Oh my
Someone
God.
just gave it. I know. I'm not going to put it on. No, because I think it's not. It's actually Florence Nightingale. But
you have a Florence Nightingale face mask.
Nightingale face mask, but
Okay.
It looks pretty scary when I put it on.
It's reported that you're keen to bring about these daily press briefings, almost like we see in Washington. There will be a daily press briefing. I've seen that in one of the newspapers. Is there truth? Is there truth to that?
Well, I think what we need to. I think the people have liked a more direct detailed information from the government about what's going on. And I think they've actually particularly liked our brilliant scientific and medical advisors, possibly more than the politicians, to be frank. But we do think that people want direct engagement and want stuff from us, and so we're going to have a go at that. And
it is going to happen.
We're going to have a go.
Who's going to chair it?
I will pop up from time to time. I have no doubt, but I don't think that's the plan.
Well, the idea is there'll be a trusted journalist. Who would ever be trusted? No. No. This is not an audience.
Step forward.
Who are you
cometh
going to?
The hour. Cometh the man.
Called from my plough. I can never remember that man's name, but I have no.
Cincinnatus.
There we are. No, I'm going to pass on that. Okay, a couple of last quick ones. China are making dark utterances and warnings about repercussions, and you and your government have gone too far with the very generous offer of 2.9 million Hong Kongers, if I may use that expression. Yeah. How concerned should my listeners be? Grave repercussions from China?
Well, look, I mean, it's always a balance in these things. I'm not a Sinophobe. I'm not one of those who... I love China. I've been to China several times. Had a great time when we went for the Olympics.
That was you waving a flag, wasn't it?
It's a fantastic country. It's a great rising power, China. We have £45 billion worth of trade with China. China is going to be part of our lives for the rest of our lives. So let's not get things out of proportion. But there are serious issues here. Hong Kong is a very special place to us. We have an agreement, the UK-China joint declaration, the basic law. Everybody understands that the one country, two systems operation has to continue.
China doesn't seem to understand that, Prime Minister.
Sorry, most people around the world understand that.
But not Beijing.
And so we have to stick up for our friends in Hong Kong. We have to stick up for their freedoms, for their rights to association, to free speech.
But you're not really. I mean, you're inviting them here, quite rightly, but that's not really sticking up for them. That's just evacuate. It's like Dunkirk.
Well, it's I think, a very powerful signal of our loyalty and our support. And
how many might come here?
Well, we can't say that, but they are. I can't give you a figure, but they will. Historically, they have proved to be fantastic contributors to society. They're brilliant, highly educated, and I think it's right to hold.
You don't have any idea how might come.
We gave a commitment in 1984 to look after them, to look after their, to make sure that we stood by them, and we will.
But how can we prepare if we don't know how many are coming? It's like inviting people to a party and you don't know who said yes.
Well, I mean, don't forget, we used to have a system whereby 580 million people could come, which we've just got rid of.
Right.
Don't forget that one, Nick.
Right.
So I think the possibility of 2.9 million, maximum pool, and of course they won't all come. But it is right that we should hold out the hand of loyalty and support.
It's interesting you mention European Union, because Michel Barnier says that Britain needs to show more respect for Brussels' red lines after talks became derailed. Are you being disrespectful? Not you personally, it's the British government being disrespectful in its negotiations.
No, not remotely, and I'm not remotely disrespectful of Michel or of the EU system, which I know well and understand deeply. I just don't think that it's right for us to proceed on the basis of the European Court of Justice continuing to arbitrate in the UK, or us continuing to have to obey EU laws even when we're out of the EU, or us having to hand over our amazing fish stocks. So we're not going to do those things. We've made it very clear.
And we're on course, hitting the deadlines, get Brexit done.
Well, we did it.
To get them next stage.
We now need to make sure that we get a good deal. And I think, actually, I've had some very good conversations with friends and colleagues around the EU. I'm a bit more optimistic than Michel is there.
On the grounds of?
Well, I just think there's a good agreement to be reached. But obviously, if we can't, then we will have the very good option also of an Australian-style arrangement.
Your trusted colleague Grant Shapps is going to be talking about allowing people to go to Europe as part of their holidays. How helpful has Nicola Sturgeon been in those ambitions to get people in the United Kingdom on their holidays?
Well, I think that it's right that we should open up cautiously, to foreign travel.
My question was, how helpful has Nicola Sturgeon been?
We've actually had very good conversations with all the devolved administrations about this, and I'm sure that everybody will work together to make sure people's holidays to those countries, and it's a small list of countries where we're going to have the air bridges, can go ahead. But don't forget, people should just, on this, it's very important for people to understand that where there's no virus at all, we're having an air bridge. We're also doing deals with some of the biggest destinations in Europe. So Germany, France, Spain, and Italy are on the list, for instance. But there will be large parts of the world, I'm afraid, at the moment, where you will have to observe 14 days quarantine when you come in, and that is only right. We've made a huge effort as a country to get this virus under control. We cannot have reinfection from abroad, and that's why this approach is the right thing to do.
I have the benefit of seeing there's news breaking at this time. Well, there's two news lines breaking. One is that a Prime Minister has resigned, but I'm assuming that
caused you to perk up, didn't it?
Well, it did, but sadly it's in France. I was excited. But the other news line breaking at this time might have given you a shock as well. No. Extinction Rebellion have announced plans they will return with a mass uprising. They will blockade Parliament in the UK on September the 1st. Should they still be protesting in a pandemic, Extinction Rebellion?
Well, I think they should be supporting the incredible things this government is doing to combat climate change. And if I were Extinction Rebellion, I'd be jumping for joy. Look at what our plans for a green recovery. Look at the amazing things we're going to do to get this country making wind turbines, making batteries. The ambition I announced for a Jet Zero to be the first country to produce a zero-emission long-haul passenger jet. I mean, Extinction Rebellion should look at some of the things this government is doing to tackle climate change and support it. That's what I think.
And very lastly, you very kindly helped us pioneer these calling senior politicians with Ask Boris when you were the Mayor of London, and they went very well. Others have tried to come in their place, including Nick Clegg, whatever happened to Cleggy, but he didn't.
Call Clegg!
Indeed, call Clegg.
Where is he? Let's call him now.
No, let's call him now. We wake him up. He'll be fast asleep.
Is he with Google or Facebook?
He's with Facebook, isn't he? So he's busy protecting people's liberties. But
right.
So the new incumbent is a fellow called Keir, as in Sir Keir Starmer.
Yes.
He's with me on Monday. Should we reverse PMQs, and I can offer you the opportunity to put a question directly to Sir Keir that we shall play to him on Call Keir on LBC on Monday, Prime Minister.
Yes, Keir, Boris Johnson here. Could you possibly just say once and for all that schools are safe to go back to, point one, and that the teaching unions should drop their opposition and allow every pupil to go back to school that can go back to school now, and every pupil should be back into school in September. No ifs, no buts, just say it.
Boris Johnson appearing here on LBC. Prime Minister, I'm grateful for your time. Thank you. News is next.